Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are diving into something I absolutely love talking about. We're exploring one of the most fascinating and honestly kind of unexpected cultural intersections in world history. We're talking about the deep, complex journey of how Islam integrated into Chinese civilization. It's a massive story, you guys. We've got merchants, sprawling empires, beautiful architecture, and incredible tales of survival. So let's just jump right in and see how this monumental blending of cultures actually took place.
So, get this. According to the traditional accounts of Chinese Muslims, the first interactions between these two worlds didn't happen centuries after the birth of Islam. No, they happened a mere 18 years after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. 18 years. That is breathtaking speed for the ancient world. The third caliph, Uthman, reportedly sent a delegation led by Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas directly to the Chinese Emperor Gozong. And man, that single diplomatic spark, it set the stage for well over a millennium of history.
Okay, let's look at our roadmap for today. First up, we've got the origins of Islam in China. 2. Trade and Tang alliances. 3. Laws and tragic massacres. 4. The Nujie Mosque legacy. And finally, number 5, science and cultural diet. Let's get to it. Section 1. Origins of Islam in China. Early diplomatic envoys.
Now, this early contact was incredibly dynamic. Let's look at the timeline. Back in 651 AD, that famous envoy from Uthman arrived, which actually led Emperor Gozong to order the construction of a memorial mosque in Canaan. By 742 AD, the Great Mosque of Sion was built. Then things get a bit tense. In 751 AD, we see military friction with the Battle of Talas, where Muslim forces actually defeated the Chinese army. But, and here's the crazy part, just 5 years later, in 756 AD, a unit of Muslim soldiers, likely Persians and Iraqis, was sent to help the Chinese Emperor Suzong put down the An-Lushan rebellion. History is literally never just one note, is it?
What's really fascinating here, though, is the linguistic footprint left behind. When Arabs were first recorded in Chinese historical annals, they were referred to as dashi. But here's the kicker. This wasn't an Arabic word at all. It was actually a Chinese derivation of the Persian word tazai. Now, tazai historically meant hound or greyhound, which was honestly a somewhat disparaging term Persians originally used for Arabs. But it really goes to show just how incredibly complex these cultural networks were, right? Information was filtering into China through these Persian intermediaries. Moving on to Section 2, Trade and Tang Alliances, the Silk Road Exchange. So put yourself in this era. We're looking at two of the most powerful empires of the medieval world, the Tang Dynasty and the Abbasid Caliphate. Less than 50 years after the chaos of the An-Lushan rebellion we just talked about, these two massive superpowers actually forged an alliance. An envoy from the famous Caliph Harun al-Rashid arrived in Chang'an, the Tang capital, to form a united front against Tibetan attacks happening out in Central Asia.
But you know, this exchange wasn't just happening over land. It was a huge maritime operation too. The Islamic world's naval expansion pushed deep into the Indian Ocean, sailing all the way over to East Asia. Once the Abbasid capital moved to Baghdad in 762, ships were sailing from ports like Bandar Siraf and Basra, cruising past India and Malacca right into southern China. Canton, which we know as Guangzhou today, became this massive, bustling hub with around 200,000 residents, and a huge chunk of that population was made up of merchants from Muslim regions.
Which brings us to Section 3, Laws and Tragic Massacres, the Crucible of Integration. Now, this brings us to a genuinely fascinating historical puzzle. In 845 AD, the Chinese state launched the Great Anti-Buddhist Persecution. This was a massive, sweeping crackdown on foreign religions. It was intense. Yet, if you look at the official edicts, they said absolutely nothing about Islam. So, why did this strict anti-religious law bypass the Muslim community entirely? Well, the answer lies in how they lived day to day. You see, the early Muslim settlers were highly focused on commerce. They strictly observed their faith internally, sure, but they did not actively proselytize to the Chinese, and they definitely didn't campaign against state beliefs like Confucianism, Taoism, or Buddhism. By keeping a low profile and operating mostly as a transient, trade-focused population rather than some kind of political threat, they completely flew under the emperor's radar during those 845 AD purges. However, they didn't escape all the turbulence of the era. In 878 AD, during the rebellion of Huangchao, a truly horrific massacre occurred in Guangzhou. The Arab geographer and traveler Abu Zayd al-Sarafi recorded that no less than 120,000 foreign merchants perished. And later historians like al-Masudi actually pushed that estimate up to 200,000 casualties. This was a devastating event that heavily impacted Muslims, Jews, Christians, and Parsis alike. Okay, let's transition to Section 4, the Newji Mosque Legacy, Architectural Blending. To really wrap our heads around this cultural integration, we have to look at something called the Shi Yuan. This is the traditional Chinese courtyard layout. When Muslims began building permanent spaces in China, they didn't just blindly import foreign Arab designs. No, they brilliantly adopted this local Chinese aesthetic. They harmonized their places of worship with the visual language of their new home, which is just incredible to see. And this brings us to a wonderful little micro-narrative from history. Records tell us about an Arab sheikh named Qawam al-Din who arrived in China with his 3 highly capable sons. Each son was granted the title of imam, and every single one of them left an incredible architectural mark on Beijing. The eldest, Nasir al-Din, built the famous Newji Mosque. The second, Saad al-Din, built a mosque in the east suburb, and the third, Sanad al-Din, built the Dengzi Mosque. It's like a family legacy set in stone. Now, what's really fascinating about the Newji Mosque is the name of the neighborhood itself. Newji literally translates to cow street. Why? Well, because unlike their Chinese neighbors whose primary meat was pork, the localized Muslim community strictly butchered and traded beef. This one distinct dietary practice literally named the entire neighborhood. It gives us a perfect everyday snapshot of how integration looked on the ground. And over the centuries, this mosque evolved dramatically. It was originally built in 996 AD on a pretty modest scale, but it received continuous expansions during the Ming and Qing dynasties. Fast forward to 1474, and it had gained so much prominence that Emperor Qinghua bestowed a financial grant upon it, along with the official title Imperial House of Prayer. I mean, that reflects a seriously high level of state acceptance and integration. Finally, let's look at Section 5, Science and Cultural Diet, Lasting Contributions. Beyond just architecture, one of the most vital texts born from this cross-cultural exchange is the Yin Shan Jin Yao, which translates to the Principles of Good Diet. This text is widely recognized as a prime example of Islamic contributions to Chinese dietary science and medicine. It brilliantly blends the medical knowledge of the Islamic Golden Age right in with traditional Chinese practices. It's a true meeting of minds. So, I want to leave you with a final thought today. If a 10th century mosque could seamlessly blend Arab founders with Chinese courtyard architecture, and if ancient empires could exchange dietary science across thousands of miles, well, what modern cultural bridges are we failing to notice today? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep exploring, and as always, keep asking questions.